Right now, in a park or a garden near you, there is an animal solving a problem that would break most machines. It is standing at the end of a thin branch, calculating the exact force needed to launch its body across a gap many times its own length, onto another branch that is bending in the wind, and it will land, grip, and keep moving without a pause. It does this hundreds of times a day, and it almost never falls. Engineers at Berkeley studied this exact leap to teach robots how to move, and the robots are still losing. We call this animal a pest, a rodent, a rat with a fluffy tail. We watch it dig in the lawn and assume it is a simple, twitchy little creature running on instinct, burying nuts it will mostly forget. Almost none of that is true, because the squirrel in your backyard is an elite athlete, a strategic thinker, a liar, a gardener that plants entire forests, and the owner of one of the most impressive memories in the animal kingdom.
It runs a private war against snakes using a weapon you cannot even see. Its brain physically grows in winter, and it is very likely outsmarting you at your own bird feeder as we speak. So today, 100 facts about the smartest animal in your backyard, the one you have completely underestimated. If you like the idea of seeing an ordinary animal for what it really is, subscribe because this whole channel is built on exactly that. Let's start with the brain. Fact 1. The squirrel's headline skill is memory, and it is extraordinary. A single squirrel can bury several thousand individual nuts in one autumn, scattered across hundreds of separate locations, and then find enough of them, months later and often under snow, to survive the winter. No notes, no map, no app. Just a brain the size of a walnut holding a database of the forest floor. Fact 2. This strategy has a name, scatter hoarding. Instead of one big pantry that a single thief could raid all at once, the squirrel spreads its wealth across a huge number of tiny, hidden caches, so no single loss is a disaster. It is diversifying its assets across hundreds of accounts, exactly like a cautious investor spreading risk. Fact 3. And it is not just randomly stashing and hoping for the best. Recovery rates in studies range widely, from as low as around a quarter of caches up to as high as 95% in good conditions. But the crucial point is that squirrels relocate their own nuts, far better than chance would ever allow. They are not guessing at all, they remember, and the evidence for it is now overwhelming. Fact 4. For decades, people assumed squirrels just sniffed out any buried nut. But experiments showed that a squirrel finds its own caches more reliably than nearby nuts buried by other squirrels, which smell just as strong. Scent is a backup. Memory comes first. Fact 5. When researchers moved the visual landmarks near a squirrel's caches, the squirrels dug in the shifted locations. They were navigating by a mental map of the space, using trees and rocks as reference points, not just following their nose to the ground. Fact 6. Here is where it gets genuinely startling. A 2017 study from the University of California, Berkeley, tracked 45 wild fox squirrels given 16 nuts each, and found that they organized their caches by type. Given different kinds of nuts, they sorted them, burying almonds in one area, pecans in another, a mental filing system built on the fly. Fact 7. Scientists call this spatial chunking, and it is a memory trick humans use too. Grouping related items together in both location and memory makes the whole set far easier to recall. Your squirrel is using the same mnemonic strategy you would use to remember a shopping list. Fact 8. The squirrel also runs a quality control system before burying anything. It assesses each nut, often by shaking it or rolling it in its paws and mouth, judging its weight and whether it is rotten or empty, and it invests more effort hiding the good ones. Fact 9. It even does long-term food planning. Squirrels will bite through the germinating tip of a white oak acorn before burying it, which stops the acorn from sprouting and spoiling underground, effectively preserving the food for longer. That is deliberate food processing for future storage. Fact 10. And a squirrel's brain adapts to all this seasonal mental work. Most small mammals see their brains shrink heading into winter. In squirrels, parts of the brain associated with memory have been found to expand in autumn, apparently gearing up for the enormous cognitive task of caching and retrieval. Fact 11. Now to the part that should end the dumb rodent idea for good. Squirrels lie. When a squirrel thinks it is being watched by a potential thief, it will perform deceptive caching, going through the entire elaborate motion of digging a hole and burying a nut, while secretly keeping the nut tucked in its mouth or paws. Fact 12. It digs a decoy. The squirrel packs down the empty hole convincingly and walks away, having planted a fake cache purely to send the watching thief to the wrong spot. This is tactical deception, behavior that requires some sense of what another individual can see and might do. Fact 13. And squirrels deceive more when it matters. Studies found they perform far more of these fake burials when they know they are being observed by other squirrels or by people, and fewer when they feel unwatched. They adjust the lie to the audience. Fact 14. This matters because pilfering is rampant in the squirrel world. Research tracking tag nuts found that a large share of caches, around a quarter in one study, were stolen by other squirrels. Theft is a constant threat, and it is exactly why deception evolved. Fact 15. Squirrels also steal strategically themselves. A squirrel will watch another bury a nut, and then dig it up the moment the owner leaves. The whole society is a running game of hide, watch, steal, and bluff. Fact 16. So the animal you dismissed as a twitchy nut barrier is actually running continuous cost-benefit calculations about the value of each nut, the risk of theft, who is watching, and whether to invest in a real cache or a decoy. That is economics, played out in a flower bed. Now let's talk about the body, because the mind rides inside one of the most capable athletic machines in nature. Fact 17. Start with the leap. Squirrels can jump distances many times their own body length, clearing gaps of several meters between branches, and they do it while judging the springiness of a bending perch on the fly. Fact 18. That specific ability drew in robotics researchers. A team at Berkeley studying how squirrels leap and land found they constantly trade off the bendiness of a branch against the distance of a gap, learning and adjusting with experience. And the findings are being used to design more agile robots. Fact 19. The tail is not decoration. It is a multi-tool, and balance is its first job. That big bushy tail acts as a counterweight and a rudder, letting the squirrel make mid-air corrections and stay stable on impossibly thin branches. Fact 20. When a squirrel falls unexpectedly, the tail becomes a righting device. High-speed studies show squirrels swing the tail to rotate the body and get their feet under them. The same physics a cat uses. And this too has fed into robotics. Fact 21. The tail is also a parachute and a shock absorber. It increases air resistance during a fall and helps cushion landings, which is part of why squirrels can survive drops that should hurt them. Fact 22. In fact, a squirrel essentially cannot fall to its death from height. Because of its low body weight, large surface area, and that tail, a squirrel reaches a low terminal velocity and can plummet from the top of a tall tree, or higher, and simply walk away unharmed. Fact 23. The tail is a blanket too. Squirrels wrap it around their bodies in the cold for insulation, and it shades them from the sun and heat. It is bedding they never have to put down. Fact 24. And it is a signal flag.
Squirrels flick and wave their tails in distinct patterns to communicate alarm, frustration, and aggression to other squirrels. A whole visual language written in tail movement. Fact 25. Now the single most underrated piece of squirrel anatomy, the ankles. A squirrel's hind ankles can rotate a full 180 degrees, swiveling its back feet completely around to point backward. Fact 26. This is why a squirrel can run straight down a tree trunk head first. With its rear feet reversed, its claws hook backward into the bark and hold, anchoring the animal as it descends nose down at speed. Fact 27. It is a genuinely rare talent. House cats cannot do this, which is exactly why cats famously climb up trees easily, but get stuck coming down. The squirrel treats a vertical trunk the way you treat a flat floor. Fact 28.
Those claws are sharp, curved, and built for the job, digging into bark on contact so that the force of a landing actually drives the grip tighter rather than bouncing the animal off. Fact 29. Squirrels have excellent vision, and it is built for the treetops. Their eyes sit high and to the sides of the head, giving them a very wide field of view, so they can spot a hawk overhead without turning around. Fact 30. They also see in color, though a limited range, and crucially, they have superb ability to judge depth and distance, which is non-negotiable for an animal that stakes its life on every jump. Fact 31. Their eyes even have a built-in sun filter. Squirrel retinas contain yellow pigment that acts like natural sunglasses, cutting glare so they can leap accurately in bright daylight. Fact 32. Like all rodents, squirrels have front teeth, the incisors, that never stop growing for their entire lives. Fact 33. This is why a squirrel gnaws so constantly. It has to. If it stopped wearing its incisors down against hard food and wood, the teeth would grow into its own skull. Chewing is not a habit, it is survival. Fact 34. Those ever-growing teeth are formidably tough. Squirrels can chew through incredibly hard materials, and the outer layer of their incisors is reinforced with iron compounds, which is why a squirrel's front teeth are often faintly orange. Fact 35. That is right. The orange tint on a healthy squirrel's front teeth is iron in the enamel, making them harder than ours. Their teeth are, in a small way, armored. Fact 36. Squirrels can chew through wood, plastic, and even soft metals, which is why they are the arch nemesis of every bird feeder ever designed. Their bite is built to crack the hardest nuts in the forest. Fact 37. A squirrel's sense of smell is powerful enough to detect a nut buried under many centimeters of soil, and even under snow. When memory and landmarks fail, the nose finds the buried cache. Fact 38. Their hearing is sharp and tuned to danger, and they use it constantly, freezing at the faintest sound while foraging out in the open where predators can strike from any direction. Now let's talk about the war the squirrel fights that almost nobody knows about, the one against snakes, because it is astonishing. Fact 39. Many ground squirrels are partly immune to rattlesnake venom. Adults carry proteins in their blood that neutralize the venom, so a bite that would kill a comparable animal is survivable for them. Fact 40. And that resistance is a live evolutionary arms race. In areas with more dangerous snakes, squirrel populations show stronger venom resistance, a measurable local adaptation to their specific enemy. Fact 41. When a squirrel confronts a rattlesnake, it does not flee. It faces the snake and waves its tail in a display called tail flagging, signaling that the ambush has failed and the snake has been spotted. Fact 42. But here is the part that sounds like science fiction. A rattlesnake hunts partly by heat, using pit organs that see infrared, the body warmth of prey. So the California ground squirrel fights back on that exact channel. Fact 43. When facing a rattlesnake specifically, the squirrel pumps extra blood into its tail and heats it up, turning the tail into a glowing infrared beacon that only shows up in the heat vision the snake uses. Fact 44. Researchers proved this with thermal cameras and even a robotic squirrel. The heated tail makes the squirrel look bigger and more alert in the snake's infrared vision, and it discourages the snake from striking. Fact 45. And the squirrel knows its enemy. It only adds the infrared heat when facing rattlesnakes, which can see it. Against gopher snakes, which cannot sense infrared, the squirrel flags its tail but does not bother heating it. It is tailoring the signal to the specific predator's senses. Fact 46. Some ground squirrels go further and chew on shed rattlesnake skins, then lick their own fur, coating themselves in snake scent to mask their smell from the predator. They wear their enemy as a disguise. Fact 47. This is a level of predator-specific strategy we rarely credit to a rodent, a private communication channel, evolved venom resistance, and chemical camouflage, all aimed at one deadly enemy. Now, the part that reframes the squirrel from backyard nuisance to keystone of the forest. Fact 48. Every squirrel that forgets a nut is planting a tree. All those thousands of caches a squirrel never retrieves are seeds, buried at the perfect depth, in soil, ready to grow. Fact 49. This makes squirrels one of the most important tree planters on the planet. Oak forests, in particular, depend heavily on squirrels and their relatives to carry acorns away from the parent tree and bury them across the landscape. Fact 50. The relationship is so deep that some scientists argue oaks and squirrels shaped each other. The oak makes a nut worth hoarding, and in exchange the squirrel unwittingly plants and disperses the oak's offspring, further than the tree could ever spread them alone. Fact 51. A single squirrel can effectively plant hundreds of trees a year through its forgotten and abandoned caches. Multiply that across millions of squirrels, and you get a significant share of the forests around you. Fact 52. So the animal you shoo off the lawn is, quietly, one of the great gardeners of the temperate world. Much of the woodland you love may have been planted, nut, by generations of forgetful squirrels. Fact 53. They also spread something you cannot see. Squirrels eat underground fungi, truffles and their relatives, and disperse the spores in their droppings, and those fungi form partnerships with tree roots that forests need to thrive. The squirrel seeds the forest and its fungal network both. Let's meet the wider family, because there is far more to squirrels than the gray one on your fence. Fact 54. There are around 300 species of squirrel, spread across almost the entire world. They live in tropical rainforest, in deserts, in city parks, and up into the freezing Arctic tundra. Fact 55. The only major landmass with no native squirrels is Australia, along with the poles. Almost everywhere else humans live, some kind of squirrel lives too. Fact 56. They range wildly in size. The African pygmy squirrel is barely the length of a finger, while the Indian giant squirrel, the Malabar, can stretch over a meter from nose to tail and comes in spectacular patches of orange, maroon, and purple. Fact 57. That giant squirrel is so large it can hang upside down by its feet to feed, and run headfirst down trees using the same rotating ankles as its tiny cousins. Fact 58. The family splits into 3 broad lifestyles: tree squirrels, ground squirrels, and flying squirrels, and each rewrote its body for a different world. Fact 59. Ground squirrels, which include prairie dogs and marmots, mostly live in burrows, and unlike tree squirrels, many of them genuinely hibernate. Fact 60. And their hibernation is extreme. A hibernating ground squirrel can drop its body temperature to near freezing, sometimes even slightly below zero, and slow its heart from hundreds of beats a minute to just a few, for months at a time. Fact 61. Arctic ground squirrels are the record holders, supercooling their body fluids below the freezing point of water without turning to ice, the lowest body temperature recorded in any mammal. Scientists study them for clues about protecting human organs and brains. Fact 62. A quick myth to kill, though. Most tree squirrels, the gray and fox squirrels in your yard, do not hibernate at all. They stay active straight through winter, which is the entire reason they spend autumn frantically hoarding food. Fact 63. Prairie dogs, which are ground squirrels, live in vast underground towns that once numbered in the hundreds of millions, and they may have one of the most sophisticated animal languages ever studied. Fact 64. Research suggests prairie dog alarm calls can encode remarkably specific information, not just danger, but the type of predator, and even details about its size, shape, and color, effectively describing the intruder to the whole colony. Now for the branch of the family that quietly breaks the rules of what a squirrel can do. Fact 65. Flying squirrels do not actually fly. They glide, using a furred membrane called the patagium that stretches between their wrists and ankles,
turning the whole body into a living parachute wing.
Fact 66. And they glide astonishingly far. A flying squirrel can sail from tree to tree across distances of many tens of meters in a single launch, some gliding the length of a city block, all from one leap and a fold of skin. Fact 67. They steer in midair with real precision, adjusting the tension of the membrane and using the flat tail as a rudder and brake, and they can even bank and make sharp turns to dodge an owl. Fact 68. Just before landing, a flying squirrel flares upward to stall and shed speed, exactly like a pilot flaring an aircraft before touchdown, then spreads its limbs to cushion the impact. Fact 69. Here is a fact that surprises almost everyone. In much of North America, flying squirrels are among the most common squirrels of all, and yet most people have never seen one, because they are nocturnal and glide silently through the dark. Fact 70. And in 2019, scientists discovered something bizarre about them. Under ultraviolet light, flying squirrels glow. Their fur fluoresces a bright bubblegum pink, a hidden color invisible under normal daylight. Fact 71. Nobody is entirely sure why. One leading idea is that the UV glow helps camouflage them from predators like owls that can see ultraviolet, or helps flying squirrels recognize each other in the dark. A secret color on a common animal that we only just noticed. Let's go back to the everyday squirrel and its daily life, because even the mundane parts are strange. Fact 72. Tree squirrels build large nests called drays, woven from twigs, leaves, moss, and bark, wedged high in the fork of a tree, and they often keep more than one, moving between them. Fact 73. They also den in tree hollows when they can, and a squirrel will maintain several homes at once across its territory, so it always has somewhere safe near its food. Fact 74.
Baby squirrels, called kits or kittens, are born blind, hairless, and utterly helpless, weighing only a few grams, and depend entirely on their mother for their first weeks of life. Fact 75. Mother squirrels are devoted and fierce, and if a nest is threatened, she will carry her babies one at a time in her mouth to a backup nest she has already prepared. Fact 76. There are documented cases of squirrels adopting orphaned young from relatives, one of the few examples of adoption seen in a normally rather solitary mammal, and it tends to follow the logic of kinship. Fact 77. Squirrels are mostly solitary and territorial, but they are not antisocial. They recognize individuals, tolerate neighbors they know, and in harsh cold some tree squirrels will huddle together in a den to share warmth. Fact 78.
They communicate with a surprisingly rich set of sounds, chattering, chucking, and screaming, combined with tail signals, to warn of predators and defend territory. That frantic chattering at you from a branch is often a genuine alarm call, and sometimes an insult. Fact 79. Squirrels eavesdrop on birds. Studies show gray squirrels listen in on bird chatter and relax when they hear the casual, contented calls of songbirds, using the birds as an all-clear signal that no predator is near. Fact 80. They are far more omnivorous than their nutty reputation suggests. Squirrels eat fruit, fungi, buds, bark, and insects, and will readily take eggs, and occasionally even small birds or nestlings. That cute vegetarian is an opportunist. Fact 81. Squirrels sometimes gnaw on bones and shed antlers they find, chewing them for minerals like calcium, and it helps wear down those ever-growing teeth at the same time. Fact 82. A foraging squirrel is a paranoid genius. It moves and stops and starts, freezing constantly to scan for threats. And that jerky, twitchy motion you find comical is a finely tuned anti-predator behavior that makes it hard to track and ambush. Fact 83. Squirrels sometimes perform a dramatic zigzag run when crossing open ground. an evasive pattern that makes it harder for a hawk to line up a strike. Unfortunately, that same instinct is what gets them killed on roads, freezing and darting unpredictably in front of cars. Fact 84. Their bodies run fast and hot. A squirrel's heart can beat several hundred times a minute, and everything about the animal is tuned for rapid bursts of intense explosive activity. Fact 85. They are quick on the ground too, capable of sprinting at around 30 kilometers an hour, and they are strong, agile swimmers when they need to cross water, despite hating to. Fact 86.
Squirrels play, especially the young, chasing each other in spiraling races up and down tree trunks. And this play is how they build the coordination and spatial skill they will stake their lives on as adults. Fact 87. They practice something like impulse control and patience, waiting motionless for a rival to leave before retrieving a cache, or holding position until the moment to leap is exactly right. Now the bigger picture, and the part where the squirrel's cleverness collides with us. Fact 88. The gray squirrel is one of the world's most successful urban animals, thriving in cities precisely because it is flexible, bold, and clever enough to exploit a human landscape full of food and short on predators. Fact 89. Their intelligence is measurable in the war over bird feeders. In one study, gray squirrels were set a complex obstacle course to reach nuts, and not only did they solve it, they got faster on repeat attempts, and still remembered the solution when tested again nearly 2 years later. That is long-term problem memory rivaling animals we consider far cleverer. Fact 90. The entire multi-million-dollar squirrel-proof bird feeder industry exists as a monument to failure. Every design is an attempt to outwit an animal that reliably, gleefully, outwits it, which is why the arms race never ends. Fact 91. Squirrels learn by watching. They will observe how another squirrel, or even a human mechanism, solves a problem and copy the successful approach, a form of social learning that speeds up their conquest of new challenges. Fact 92. The gray squirrel is also a cautionary tale about moving animals around. Introduced from North America to Britain and Europe, it has outcompeted and largely replaced the native red squirrel across much of its range. Fact 93. It won partly by carrying a disease. Gray squirrels harbor a virus that is mostly harmless to them but deadly to red squirrels, so they spread sickness into the natives simply by moving in, a biological weapon they did not know they had. Fact 94. In Britain, the native red squirrel has declined catastrophically, by around 95%, with most survivors now clinging on in Scotland. The clever, adaptable gray did not fight the red so much as simply outperform and outsurvive it. Fact 95. It is worth being honest, then. The very traits that make the squirrel so impressive, its boldness, adaptability, and intelligence, are exactly what make it such a formidable invader where humans have carried it somewhere new. The problem, as usual, started with us. Fact 96. Squirrels have quietly shaped human technology. Beyond the leaping robots, their ankle joints, their landing physics, and their tails have all been studied by engineers designing more agile, more stable machines. We are reverse engineering the backyard. Fact 97. And they have shaped our forests more than almost any animal we ignore. The distribution of oaks, hickories, walnuts, and pines across whole continents has been steered, over thousands of years, by which nuts squirrels chose to bury and forget. Fact 98. So sit with the full picture. This is an animal that plants forests, wages infrared warfare on snakes, runs a memory palace of thousands of buried nuts, lies to its rivals, grows its own brain for the season, survives falls from any height, and defeats our best engineering for fun. Fact 99. And we look at all of that, sitting on a fence eating a stolen peanut, and we call it a pest. The gap between what the squirrel is and what we assume it to be may be the widest of any animal we see every single day. Fact 100, which is really the whole point. You did not need to travel to a jungle or the deep sea to find an animal that would astonish you. One of the most remarkable minds in nature has been living in your backyard the entire time. planting your trees and outsmarting you at your bird feeder, waiting for you to actually look. So the next time you see a squirrel freeze on a branch and lock eyes with you, understand what is actually happening in that little skull. It is running the numbers. Are you a threat? Is anyone watching? Where is the safest place to hide the next nut, so that nothing on earth, including you, will ever find it? You are not being stared at by a pest. You are being assessed by a strategist. I will end with a challenge instead of a question. For 1 week, watch the squirrels near you like they are the subject of a documentary, and count how many times one of them does something you cannot explain. Then come back and drop that number below, along with the strangest thing you saw, because I guarantee the total will be higher than you expect. If you would rather know the real version of the animals around you than the boring one you were handed, the subscribe button already knows what you are going to do. Another ordinary animal gets taken apart very soon.